Please go ahead. We are live now.
Okay, thank you, Yashpal. Good morning, all of you. This is Nahid Alam from ASSOCHAM. I'm heading IPR department ASSOCHAM. Thank you so much for joining us for this important webinar. And now I request Hemang to do a welcome address and also introduce the speakers. Thank you, Hemang. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nahid. Good morning to everyone who's here. Hope all is safe and fine at your respective ends. As a country, we are going through a lot of trials and tribulations. So, I think I trust the words that this too shall pass. That's the only thing we can do. And please be of as much help to each other. Now, with the theme for today, IPR best practices for innovators. See, the only way out of any crisis, whether it's your business crisis or anything, is out of innovation. Innovation has helped us through the ages, and it's the only way forward. Now, with that theme in mind, we also know that one of the big drivers of good business in the country, good innovations in the country, comes from the world of startups and SMEs. I personally come from a business family, what you would call as traditionally small businesses in the wholesale markets. They all innovated in their own respective ways, but there were certain things which I saw wherein they failed to capture any of their innovations, and they didn't profit from it. They profited from their business sense or business acumen, but not from intellectual property. So I have a personal connection with how IP can really benefit. And now, having worked for a company that deeply values innovation, I know how much of a difference it can make, to especially the tech world. Now, along with me today, there are several distinguished guests. So let me just give a brief background and welcome them all today. First, we have Mr. Jitesh Chaudhary. He is the director for C-DAC, which is the Center for Development of Advanced Computing at Silchar. He brings an interesting product management experience with a strong background in embedded systems and hardware. We also have Dr. Vinita Jindal, who is the Chief IP Manager for Technology and Management at BIDAC. BIDAC is one of India's leading biotech research institutes. They encourage so much innovation, and I'll tell you briefly later about the work that we are doing with startups, and we actually get a fair amount of startups that have been seeded by BIDAC, and then they are advancing and taking that up to market. We are also joined here by Mr. Jatin Trivedi, who is a fellow co-chair with me at the National IPR Council at ASSOCHAM. He is also a senior partner at a very respected IP firm, YJ Trivedi and Company. Mr. Trivedi has written a bunch of books on IPR law and practices, and also, a lot of his work, is tied with startups and SMEs. We have Mr. Balwant Rawat, who is an IP leader and innovation management at Daimler. He's a dear friend. I've been interacting with him over the years, and I know how much he's passionate about increasing innovation at Daimler, and especially if you're familiar with the cars that Daimler produces, most notably Mercedes, but of course other areas also. Balwant has been recognized as amongst the world's leading IP strategists by IM Strategy 300 for the past 3 consecutive years, and I'm sure for many more years to come. Finally, we are joined by Dr. Anurag Agarwal, who is a professor at IIM Ahmedabad. He's a recipient of their Marti Manaraya Gurunath Outstanding Teacher Award. He has published a bunch of books. I'm familiar with his work, on business and intellectual property, and I especially highlight the portions where he brings up this fictitious place of Anarabad, but he ties the world of IP and how startups and entrepreneurs can think about that in a very easy to digest manner. So having said that, and finally, I am Dr. Hemang Shah. I work for Qualcomm India, and my chief responsibilities are to work with startups in the area of IoT, especially where they are solving problems using mobile edge compute, and they are using advanced AI techniques. Over the years, our program has incubated 65 startups. About a third of them have gone on and launched commercial products. Cumulatively, they've raised more than $80 million in funding. And most importantly for me, they have filed for close to 200 patents, majority of them being filed first in India. And then the market for these companies who innovate out of India is not just India. The market for them is the world. So they're actually filing their patents in rest of the countries in the world also. Now, when we started working with startups on IP, we realized that there was an awareness gap. Some of them were quite aware, they had received good mentorship, but a large number of them did not receive the IP guidance in a practical and easy to digest manner. So we partnered, with NLU Delhi and with DPIIT to launch a program called as L2 Pro. And if you just give me a minute, I'll just pull up my slides and kind of tell you very briefly what that program is about. And so L2 Pro is an IP e-learning program designed specifically for startups, and especially Indian startups and MSMEs in the fundamentals of IP. Now, IP can bring you many benefits. There are I have hands-on experience in the area of patenting, especially with high-tech startups. But startups today are contributing to IP in a number of domains, especially copyrights, trademarks, and most importantly, our goal is that IP should be a core aspect of your business strategy. It starts with R&D, and that's the origin of it. But quickly, R&D translates into how you enter the market, and IP plays a significant part over there. The program is designed into three sections or three levels. We have the basic level, the intermediate, and advanced, where we cover various aspects. Now, if you're a startup, I highly recommend you to go through the basic section. And of course, I'm sure as you go through the course, you'll find yourself more and more curious. So you'll start delving a bit deeper. Now, why is it relevant for startups and how is it? Well, we realize that startups today, may not necessarily need to go through a typical IP textbook. So the way we design the content is to help startups, especially the CTOs. If you're a founder, if you're the CEO of your company, you'll find this material very easy to digest. It's visually appealing. There are quizzes in between which will prompt you and just quickly test your knowledge. And for the folks who really want to put their knowledge to test, there are assessments at the end of each level, wherein if you pass it successfully, you'll get a certificate on the spot issued by DPIIT CPAM, by NLU Delhi and Qualcomm. Now the course is completely free of charge. You can access it on your web browser or on your tablet, through l2proindia.com, or you can search for it on the Play Store or iOS Store. Just search for L2 Pro India. As I mentioned, it's completely free, and you can download it for offline viewing also. These are the partners who contributed to L2 Pro. We've been working with startups since 2016, and the learnings are from a very practical perspective. So really hope that all of you, take advantage of this program, try it out, and let us know of your feedback. With that said, let's learn from the experts and the distinguished speakers that we have here today. So let me now invite Mr. Jitesh Chaudhary, and over to you, sir. I'll stop my sharing.
Thank you, Hemang. Good morning, everyone. Hemang, can I get the host rights to share my screen?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone. I thank ASSOCHAM team for giving me this opportunity. Without wasting much time, I would straight away come to the point and I'll start what are the experience I have and the learnings I have from the product development point of view related to the IPR. So as we all know that advancement in technology and adoption of technology is essential for the growth of any economy. This will not only happen when there is an ecosystem present, which helps innovation to convert into a viable product and goes to the market. And for this kind of ecosystem, IPR plays a key element to success of any innovation to reach market and earn some revenue. Innovativeness is a necessary skill for anyone. My slides are moving.
No, sir. It's only first slide is this.
Yeah, it looks to be.
If you kindly remove, stop it and again share it. I think it will work.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Seems there is a problem. I don't know, like why it's not moving. I can do it without presentation mode. I think I can do it. Yeah, I think now it's moving. Yeah.
We're not seeing your screen, but I had an issue with the presentation mode at my end too. Yeah, good.
Now it's moving, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's moving now.
Yeah. Thanks for patience. Innovativeness is a necessary skill for anyone who wants to succeed in this today's global economy. And for that purpose only, every year, the World Intellectual Property Organization issues a Global Innovation Index to showcase how the countries are standing on the front of innovation. And you can see they are categorized in 8 different categories, and in none of them, as a India, we are standing in top 3. One step ahead, if we see the factors which are recommended by the World Economic Forums, which are which we can say essential factors for measuring the innovation of any country compared to the global market. So we are not near to any of the leading countries like China and US. We are on an average on all these 6 parameters, we are lagging by almost 50%. But despite of all these deficiencies, globally, Indian startup ecosystem stands 3rd. And this is because of the venture capital and private equity investors who played a critical role in the pushing this startup ecosystem. Almost 72% of the startups are in the area of metropolitan like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, which has a good infrastructure and a good manpower pool. Easy access to the funds and the local talents, support by the government, has made these ecosystems to reach to the local level also. And now our tier B cities are also participating into this startup ecosystem. Almost 20% of Indian startups have a primary market outside India, which balance the dependency of our startups on only on Indian market. So in case of any problem in Indian economy, they can be recovering their cost from the other markets also. Similarly, almost 90% of the startups has a investment from the global MNCs. So which is again a very good push for our system. So on an average, in the last 5 years, India has progressed with the rate of almost 12 to 15% growth in the startup system. Why this has happened despite of some deficiencies also? So it comes to the three frugal principles which generally our startup follow. They keep the things very simple, reduce the complexity, and make sure the product is easy to use. They make it affordable so that it can reach to masses, and they cleverly reuse the resources, because being a developing country, we have always our limitation in terms of resources also. Apart from these three principles, they too have a never say die attitude. They never bog down by the difficulties, and they always try to find the way even case of adversity and resource scarcity. So with this, we understand how the Indian startup ecosystem stands. But if we take a journey of innovation to the market, so there is a concept comes of the valley of death. This is because this starts right from the start of the ideation, or the idea comes to till it goes to the market. But what is the significance of this concept? Because this plays a very important role in a journey of a product to reach market. Because this is the time when most of the product fails and they never see the light in the market. And this is the time IPR comes into picture. If a product has a good IPR, it has a lot of potential to bring the money from market and continue its further journey. So that's why IPR is one of the important element in the terms of a startup ecosystem. If you would like to see how an innovation ecosystem look like, so this image can be easily understandable that we have many key enablers in these ecosystems. In any country, for an ecosystem to successfully reach innovation, to successfully reach market, the right kind of environment is very much required. Generally, this we address as an innovation ecosystem. It's follow the principle of move fast, fail often philosophy, and it's try to give you a path for young innovators, entrepreneurs to go to the market in the fastest manner without worrying much about the system. So in all these ecosystems, the major companies come into picture, government support comes into picture, we have infrastructure support, and lot many things which enables these young startups and entrepreneurs to take their product from cradle to market. In this ecosystem, again, this intellectual property function as a bonding link between government, companies, and the stakeholders, which are dynamically influence the strategy of any innovators while protecting its intellectual assets. So after understanding this ecosystem, I would like to highlight what IPR brings to the on the dais or the platform. So I think this we all are aware that IPR has its many advantages. So few of them are listed here. So it brings economical benefits, like IPRs are involved, plays a significant part in any economy in terms of its GDP, employment, strategic importance. It also helps in to bring FDI. Not only the monetary benefit, it also promotes the innovation. It's encouraged the society to innovate different products and make the society more advanced and developed. As well as it helps the startups or the companies to monetize their innovations in terms of revenue by licensing their products or the intellectual assets, and further grow by developing newer products. It also helps MSMEs. It has been reported in many surveys that the MSMEs which have the IPR with them, they progress much better than compared to the MSMEs which don't have any kind of IPRs. And finally, it benefits consumers and society. Because of the different innovations and the assurance of the innovations are protected by the IPR, many innovators come up with the better products for the society and consumers. So end of the day, our society gets the quality products and without the infringement of any intellectual property rights. When it comes to the challenges in the IPR ecosystem, these challenges are from the point of view a typical innovator, how he thinks and what kind of difficulty he faces. So if we see, the first point is always the cost. What will be the cost of filing a IPR and how to cope up with that burden? Then second will be the lack of IP assets. The innovation has some innovativeness, but it is not sure whether it can be a valuable IP asset or not. Because tomorrow, after investing the money for the IPR also, if they not get return, so that will not be fruitful for them. Again, the entire process of getting IPR is a very long duration. So that also affects the process of innovation or to go to market sometimes with the product. The lack of enough role models and the low returns on innovations, as I pointed out in the second part again. So that all these things make sometimes the innovators discouraged not to go for IPR. The instances of misinformation. Many times the innovators don't have the proper information related to their product itself and how to file the IPR. And they try different methods to get the IPR. In that process, they may end up with the huge expenditure in this process. Then the lack of capital to fight infringement in case if they are having such kind of any suits. And finally, the lack of awareness. So that's how these programs like LP2 Pro will help young innovators. Now, how to tackle these challenges? So the first thing which we can always consider is take the professional helps. It's not that simple that filing an application will get you the IPR. It's the technicalities which be written on the application in a certain manner, in a certain fashion with the language which is understandable by the patent office, so that we get these innovations get IPR without wasting much time. Otherwise, redrafting a patent application right from the it takes a lot of amount instead of going for a professional help from at the start itself. The second one is that what your intellectual property brings to you. So before going for any IPR, we have to understand, are we need that IPR or I am going to get what out of this? So again, sometimes the innovators are not understand in which category it falls, whether it's a patent, whether it's a copyright, whether it's a trademark. So those kind of information is also very much required for them. Then defining objective, what to achieve from your IP. So which I already told that sometimes we himself are, as an innovator, we're not aware what our IP brings to us, or maybe just we think there is something innovativeness, let's go for IPR. So this should not be the case. Again, if we have an IP which should be protected, it should be protected as soon as possible. Because if we delay the things, tomorrow someone else will come up with that idea and your innovation will be in doldrums. You may not reach to the market at the right time. Sometimes it also happens that your idea not falls into the category of patent or in the copyright or something, but you have something unique in your product. So that can be protected as a trademark. So you have an option of going for a trademark. Then again, there is a approach should be realistic, because there are, for any product, we have to take IPRs in individual countries, or depends upon the treaty between the different countries. So it is not possible that a product can be patented at all the platforms across the world. So our approach should be realistic. Where my market is more, I should go with my IPR into that market, lest I should leave, because this will take a lot of money and time. Again, the big and controversial. So it's like means whatever the IPR we are generating, sometimes it's become difficult to get patented or get the IP rights for that, because it falls into the category of a product which may be useful for a larger masses, and it should not be protected by any kind of IPR. So again, the government and the society and the law offices will have their observation on this category. So you have to be very careful on this. Then all your secret should be kept secret unless it is patented, because it's a proverb that a secret shared is no more a secret. So your trade secret should be kept very securely along with innovator only, so that not a small leak will help anyone to compete with you. And finally, you make sure that IP, whatever you are going for, any rights, it will be protected your development. Sometimes it happens that we go for an IPR, and once the IPR tenure or the period is over, it is open for the market. Then you will not be in position to claim any kind of development on that. Again, you have to go for a newer patent. So if you want to continue with the product, sometimes it is not possible to go for IPR. Instead, you can keep your trade secret with you and continue for in the market. For an example, Coca-Cola formula.
Jitesh sir, request you to wrap up quickly.
Yeah, just last one slide, that pitfalls I would like to address. So I think my slides again is stuck. Okay, I think my slides are stuck, but I would like to highlight this few pitfalls which generally startups fall into that startups should bear in mind the importance of confidentiality and put in place measures to protect confidential information internally and externally. Another important pitfall, they follow the delayed strategy. They're busy in the development, and in that process, they forget to take the patent for their product, and someone will else come up with that protection and lose the market. And finally, the last one, the startup needs to be mindful who owns the IP rights. Sometimes it happens because of the collaboration, the IP rights goes with the collaborator instead of the innovator himself. So those kind of things also we have to address. So as the time is running off and my slides are also not moving, sorry for that. So I just would like to conclude with a few statements about the IPR, that IPR system plays a significant role in helping business to gain and retain the advantage. So IPR system should be in place in this competitive and innovative worlds. Thank you.
चलेगा कोई नहीं, मैं मेरे खत्म होते तो मैं ले लूंगा. तो कितने पेटेंट्स हैं आप पे, काउंट किए थे क्या?
Mr. Hemang?
Sorry for that. Thank you so much, Mr. Jitesh. Really appreciate your insights and truly agree that you shared a lot of practical benefits. And I like the idea, especially that how startups should think of, here's when I can go for patenting, here's when I have to let's keep it within the company until the timing is right. There's a lot of thought process which needs to go behind it. So thank you so much for sharing these practical insights with the innovators. Yeah. Now, may I request someone else speaking? Can they mute themselves? You're hearing a background audio. Yashpal or Nahid, can you check?
Check who is speaking.
Yeah. And in the meantime, maybe invite Dr. Vinita to share her views.
ठीक है, आप भेज दीजिएगा, मैं चेक कर रहा हूँ. आप भेज दीजिएगा मेरे को, मैं चेक कर रहा हूँ. ओके. स्क्रीनशॉट भी नहीं आएगा क्या?
I request you to kindly mute your mic. I can't see.
Okay, ठीक है. हाँ, चलेगा. Yes.
Yes, Pal. Can you switch off all mics? Then Vinita ji can switch on her mic.
Yes, sir.
Vinita ji, over to you. Please switch on your mic and over to you.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And many thanks for giving me...
Your voice is very low. Vinita ji, we can't hear you properly.
Okay. I hope now it is more clear.
It's still very low. Hemang, could you hear her properly?
And I could hear her.
Okay. Go ahead.
But it looks like others are also facing him, because there was one or two comments from the chat box which I saw.
Yes.
So I'm not sure. Now, I mean, I'm sitting in front of the system and it is very close to me, but I hope I'm audible.
I think you need to come closer to your mic, ma'am, because the voice is very visible. You know, nobody, even audience, can't hear. They are.
Better now? Yashpal, is it better?
Still, we can't hear you.
Sure, because I'm very close to my the system mic.
Still, I think there is some problem with microphone. Meanwhile, I would suggest, can you log off and again log in, so that in between we can invite other speaker to speak, and you can come back. Then we will invite you.
Sure.
Hemang, over to you. Please invite next speaker so that we can.
Sure. Mr. Jatin, are you online? Sorry for this, I guess, change of plans, but if you're available.
Yeah, Hemang, that's not a problem. I can take it over.
Great.
I can understand the technical glitch. Can someone allow me to share the PPT, please?
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, please. Thank you. Hemang, it's visible?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right. Good morning, friends, and good morning to all the participants and my co-colleagues and speakers. And Hemang, thank you very much. Hemang, Yashpal, and Nahid, thank you very much for making me part of this L2 Pro. Right. So L2 Pro is a very great initiative, Hemang, and I compliment to you and Qualcomm for such a great initiative. I understand I have 10 minutes, so I will not take much of your time, but I've been told that the most of the audience are either the startups or maybe the young entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurs who is having some or other challenges to understand what the intellectual property, or maybe not able to protect at the right stage, and then they have faced the issues with the intellectual property. So as the Hemang has said, I'm a practitioner. I'm practicing in the field of intellectual property since 25 years. So I'm here just to share a couple of examples, which I was to speak later part because, because of this technical point, I just came it here. So just excuse me that I have stepped ahead one than what you are supposed to follow. So nonetheless, from my perspective, I feel that the innovation is nothing but in a combination of an idea which has an intelligence inputs and which ultimately brings the solution to any problem. And if it has creativity, why the creativity word, I will come to the later part, because it's not limited from my perspective that it is should be limited to the technical part. So if it is not a technical one, but it can be said as an intellectual property, the innovation as well. In general, the intellectual property, briefly, I believe it's Jitesh has also covered. So in a brief, I will just tell you that there are major 4 intellectual property which you should know. One is the patent, which covers your inventions; the design, which covers the shape of the patent, the shape of the product; brand covers the trademark, and the content or the creative writings or something covers under the copyright. So these are the major 4 intellectual property which you should know for. And here what I'm gonna tell you is about that why I feel that you should own the intellectual property irrespective of the challenges what you may be having in the past. So very briefly, we talk about where the India stands for the innovation. The India, as we all know, that in this last couple of years has been improving, and now stands at the 52nd in the rank, then the 57 in the last year. So India is constantly climbing the stairs of the innovation index, and I'm sure that India will do much better in future as well. Quickly, I will just touch upon when we are talking about the pandemic which we are facing in India. If I remember some time back, Mr. Bill Gates have said about the India. He stated that I just summarized here is that he recently said about that India is capable of not only developing the COVID vaccines, but it is also capable for reaching out to the world with the production. So that's the strength of the India in terms of the innovation and in terms of the production as well. So this testifies that the India has a huge potential, and globally India is also known for the innovation as well, and which we have seen in the global innovation index as well. So in a nutshell, the intellectual property is nothing but an idea converted into the protectable rights, right? So any idea, be it in a form of, as I said, be it in a form of a technology, be it in a form of a shape, be it in form of a name, any idea which is there, which is converted into the statutory rights, then or a protectable rights, then it turns out to be an intellectual property. But in some of the cases, the intellectual property are detached from the rights, and many of the unique ideas which is associated or attached with the product are not protected under the patent law or a design law or any other law existing in India. But yes, it is called as an intellectual property. It may not be intellectual property rights. Right. So ideally, I would like to give an example where I personally see that in such small product which every day we use it, and it has all the full intellectual property into it. Like if you look at the example of the pen, which comprise of the patent, the nib is patented, which is allow you to write smoothly in comparison to the other products. It has aesthetic look that comprise the design. It has written the Parker or the brand, which is written in a very stylized manner, which is eye-catchy, and that's a copyright. And the name and logo of the product per se is something which is trademarking. Not going much into it, I'm just coming to the advantage, because I want you guys to know what the advantage of intellectual property and why you should indulge into the protecting your intellectual property. Mind it here that intellectual property, obtaining an intellectual property is a really smooth process now, and fortunately India has in last decade, at least in 5 years, I've seen and I've witnessed that the intellectual property system, the ecosystem in a country has improved in many folds, right? So I do recommend strongly that you should acquire the intellectual property right for any innovations which you bring it in the world, right? So if you look into the advantage of the intellectual property is it's protect the genuine business assets. That may be either the integrated part of the core system, or maybe a strategy of the business, or an overall long-term viability of the product. It also safeguards against the competitors, and that's what I believe Mr. Jitesh has already covered out, that it safeguards against the competitors from using the for the market share, right? So it increases your market share as well. As I said, it here is that it prevents the competitor from infringing and counterfeiting a innovative product or a unique services which you bring into the world, right? So it creates a barrier, a legal barrier which you can enforce before the court of law. Creating a corporate identity, because if you look at to the Apple, right, versus any other phone, right? So we know that Apple has its own reputation of bringing the innovation or maybe innovative product in the world, and rightly Hemang is here, and he also acknowledged that the Qualcomm is constantly bringing the new innovation in the world. So Qualcomm is also known for the unique technology and patented products or ideas bringing in the world, right? So the best part, what I personally feel, is that as a startup, as a young entrepreneur, it allows you to negotiate at the licensing or a franchisee stage or any contractual agreements which you are entering into, which are IP based, like it may be of manufacturing, it may be of selling, it may be of distributing in the world. And that's where you get an added advantage to negotiate if you rightly holds the intellectual property in your hand. Majorly the startups or maybe the young entrepreneurs, or maybe even the big enterprises as well, are looking for attracting segments into the investors and finance. I personally feel that and I have witnessed in some of the cases that if you have right intellectual property, very well managed and rightly protected, then the investor gives the priority to such ventures to invest into it. We should not forget that it gives you a different market access. Like it's a completely new market because it's a new product altogether. All right. According to one survey which I was referring, is that the IP initiative industries is established and generate 72% of more value added per employee. So that is something as an entrepreneur you will be more keen for looking at. From my perspective, I believe that the one slide in nutshell I can say to you is that the journey from the intellectual property protection to an economical growth. Conventionally, if we look at that, the best better IP protection if we have, and if it is systemized way we have protected, then it stimulates the innovation within the organizations, the stimulations definitely brings the improvisation, because it's motivate the person who is involved into the research and development. And when they are motivated, they are out to bring the new and better product. Now, if you have a new and better product, it goes without saying that you will have a little bigger market in comparison to your competitor, because you have a new product altogether, and new and a better product will definitely brings the bigger market as well. Since you have a monopoly market, bigger market, added market, or maybe the additional market space where you can monopolistically market your product, it will by default will brings the economical growth into the organization as well. So whether it is be it a small or a big, it doesn't make any difference, but the journey of the intellectual property protection and the economical growth will remain the same. So not touching upon here, because this is something what the WIPO has been time and again saying. My coordinator may allow me to skip couple of slides because I want to share the examples with them. In a nutshell, what the intellectual property and innovations are two sides of the same coin, right? You cannot leave one part and acquire the other part. So it cannot survive without each other, right? So as I said, that the intellectual property contributes some way to protect new innovations and invention, that gives you an added market, and that's how the intellectual property will be connected with the innovation as well. Let's look at to the some of the interesting examples which I believe that they are heads off to them, that they have strived for the protecting their intellectual property, and they have done phenomenally good job in the respective industries which they are into. The first example which I thought to share with you is that the Ulta Chhata, which is one of the closest to my heart, is that the innovator, the designer, I would say, the two designers who have invented the rainwater harvesting, which is generating up to harvesting up to 100,000 liters of water. Not only that, but with the maximum peak of 1.5 kilowatt it can generate. So Ulta Chhata is nothing, is simply a canopy that captures the rainwater and then filter in 5 steps, and it makes a drinkable water. So it works on the solar electricity generator as well. So this is nothing but I believe that it's a very unique innovation. And if you look at to that innovation per se, it not limits for that you need to have the big infrastructure, you need to have the big setup to bring the innovation in the world. Similar way, the guy called Arun and Anup from the state of Kerala have came up with a very small turbine, which is in size of the ceiling fan, and it's very low cost, but this turbine generates the 5 kilovolts per day, and cost is less than an iPhone or any other phone. And these people, this Arun and Joe, the Arun and Anoop, have been named in the top 20 clean tech innovation in India. So you can see that what level of innovation people bring it in the world. And it's not necessary, again, I'm saying that it's not necessary that it has to be very unique or maybe a big product per se. So this is another innovator who has converted the moistures into the air purified drinkable water. And this is something which is in need of an hour. And people have been calculating, or people have been forecasting that, in coming days, there will be a scarcity of the drinkable water. So this kind of product will definitely help the world in a coming future. So this apparatus brings the drinkable water with the help of computerized sensors interface with the UV filter fitted into it, and in 1 hour time, it device extracted nearly 1.8 liter of water from the air. So this is something, if you look into this, these small innovations which people bring it in, and these are the product which goes into the market, and they have been trying for the commercialization of this product. If that is done, so you can imagine that what level of the market space they will be acquiring in the world, not limited to the country, but it will be in the world. So the innovation is not limited to a product, and as I deviate from the innovation into the technology, from the innovation into the workplace. So we know all that globally the place called WeWork is another innovative concept and provides the sharing the workspace. And it has placed the work then when people cannot work from home, the public library or cannot afford high rented premises. So if you look into the WeWork, as in 2019, the WeWork has 848 locations worldwide, with the 36 of them operating in India. So this is the concept, and later part of the once the WeWork enter into the India, I'm aware of that there are several other spaces are there. So now. Innovation in slogans, right? So it's not limited, as I said, technology is not limited to the physical things, but it's attached to the unique brand and unique name as well. We normally go to the Starbucks and we see the unique names, which is called Vente, Grande, and Tall, right? So these are the brands which has been innovatively brought by them into the market just to stay distinct from their competitor, instead of telling them large, medium, and small, right? They could have named this, which is popularly known in the world, but they came up with this unique name, and that has given them an advantage to protect and stay competitive and stay unique from the other part of the other competitors as well in the world. This is a very unique example as a woman innovator, and I'm sure that many of you must be aware about that, who's the Laurie Granier is. So Laurie Granier is a part of the Shark Tank, which is a very famous series, or I would say the episodes coming in the from the Western Falls, specifically for the startups, right? So she had been a part of this, and Laurie Granier is an American entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and now she has turned to a television personality as well. So unique part what she has brought in, and in 1996 she has obtained for the patent of the design. You can see I've pasted the image of that earring holder design. So this design has become so popular, and she got a patent for it. And she has not restricted her business activity for herself, but she has licensed this product to several multinational stores, multi outlets in United States. And today, if you look at it, she has more than 400 products and having 100 million of net worth with the 120 US and international patent as well. So as I said, that the innovation is not something which you need to only create, but here is the example that you can lease it out, you can license it out, and you can make the business out of it if it is well protected. The last example I will take in, which is again
Jatin bhai, sorry, I think we are out of time. So
just a last slide, Hemang. Yeah,
sure.
thank you. Yeah, so this is the example which I would like to share with you is that the Kodak has come up with the has declared the bankruptcy, and sometime in the 2011 and in 2013, as a part of their bankruptcy sale, the Kodak sold the several their innovative patents to the companies like Microsoft, Samsung, Adobe Systems, and Apple and others. The patent sale worth of $525 million, and they could come out from the bankruptcy. So this is the example where the intellectual property is not only helps you in good time of yours, but even you're in a bad part of the economical side, then is also helps you there. So thank you very much, Hemang, for giving me an extension period, and I thanks to the audience. I'm sure I would have spared some more time with you, but time is constrained, and I respect that. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Jatin. That was actually really insightful, and I think what really helped were the examples and a variety of examples. And I'm particularly curious about this Ulta Chhata. I think it's a really remarkable thing, especially in our country where water harvesting can make a huge difference. So thanks so much for sharing your insights. And let me ask if Dr. Vinita is back online, and if possible, we can hear her thoughts.
Hemang, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I guess over to you, ma'am.
If you can help me in sharing the slides.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry about the technical glitches. And first of all, good morning, everyone. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. So let me very briefly mention about what are the important considerations and the best practices that any innovator should or maybe a startup should keep while developing any product, or if they are developing a services. So what are the important considerations they should keep in mind? We all, are aware of this innovation cycle, and we must have seen this innovation cycle in some way. So, any startup or any innovator, when they actually start the innovation process or innovation cycle, they come up, they have some idea, they want to pursue their idea. So, so during this ideation process, how they, start developing their product, how they think about their product and services development. And within this process, what happens, because they gather and they collect a lot of information, maybe from the internet, from the literatures, from any other sources. So when they collect this information to pursue their idea and to develop some product, they come up with a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. And during this process, they also identify, they also come up with some intangible assets, which are very important and very crucial to have these intangible assets when they develop some products and services. So as soon as they identify what are these intangible assets and how they are able to protect them, they are able to generate, or they are able to come up with the protection of these intangible assets, and they might be able to generate revenue with the help of these intangible assets by way of protecting them. And we also aware of the fact that all these startups, all the companies who are working in this innovation cycle or innovation process, they always face several kind of issues, which could be hiring of the qualified personnel, how to raise capital, and how to protect the intangible assets. And we also know that these intellectual properties are the most valuable asset for a technology startup. So it becomes very essential uh, for the startup to protect them, because in somewhere, and they might be getting, or they might be approaching to the venture capitalists for obtaining the fundings. also these protecting the intellectual property rights, they will also be able to prevent their competitors from unfairly competing with them. So we all know what is the intellectual property rights, and Mr. Jitesh and Mr. Jatin has already they have already covered a lot of content. So quickly, if I am able to explain about what is intellectual property, so it is basically creation of mind or the human intellect, which actually results in the useful invention, and it could be anything. Anything could be means like literary and artistic work. It could be design, it could be symbol, name, and images. And as a creator, you get an exclusive right over the use of your creation for certain period of time, and these creation of mind or the human intellect should be new and original in the global context. So when we talk about the intellectual property, we always think about the property. So when we are saying it is a property, we always think about ownership. And this property cannot be used without the permission of the owner. So it means we need to have a permission. So permission required to use any kind of property. Similarly, in case of intellectual property, if you protect them, then you always need to have a permission from the owner. So these intellectual property rights are exclusive rights, and these are awarded for a fixed period of time, and after the expiry of this protection time, anyone can use these intellectual property without the permission of the owner. So if we see what are the important or the key features of all forms of intellectual property rights, these can be sold, these can be bought, you can rent it out, and you can also pass under a will, and these can also be assigned to someone else. So we all know about how they behave or what is the different nature of the IPR. They are generally time bound. Also, they are territorial. If you file a patent application or if you protect your trademark application in India, it will remain applicable only in India. It should be original, it should be new or novel, and it should have some industrial application. And by way of filing or having a ownership in one country, you can also think about filing or registering your IPR in more than one jurisdiction. So we all know that IP rights comes in various flavors, and each IPR is a defensive right to pursue legal action in the event if any third party infringes the rights of the owner or the third party. And we all know what are the different forms. These are the copyright, trademark, geographical indication, patent, trade secret. It could be industrial design. If you are working in the space of plants, then you can think about the protection of plant varieties and Farmers' Right Act and integrated circuit layout design protection. So we know what are the different flavors of the IPR are available, and we should be aware of the fact that what kind of innovations or what aspects can be covered by way of different IPR. So if we are talking about the patent, then we can think about like recombinant microorganism, vectors, vaccines, composition, expression system, maybe the process of making these enzymes or the vectors. Similarly, for the trademark, we can protect the words, the icons, graphical design, and if we have some logos, these all comes under the protection, and these can all be protected by way of trademark. Similarly, for the registered designs, which actually covers the aesthetic appearance of the products, it does not cover the technical aspects, so you can think about registering your design. So trade secrets, Mr. Jitesh and Mr. Jatin both talked about trade secrets and the confidential information. So while developing any product and services, if you have any confidential information, but if this confidential information, which is very much required to make the product or process, you don't want to protect by way of any IPR, then you can keep it secret. This could be a laboratory notebook, maybe design workbook, customer information, data exclusivity on clinical data. So those kind of things are part of the trade secrets. The plant breeders or the plant variety rights the different plant varieties, and how you propagate and harvesting material from plant varieties. These can be covered under plant breeders or variety rights. Domain names covers the web addresses. So when we know like what are the different flavors of the IPR and what type of innovation can be protected under these IPR, so let's identify the core intellectual IPR assets. So this is just a snapshot, and we will briefly see in the subsequent slides how we actually identify. So we actually we identify the company name and the domain name and trademark, and then as soon as we identify them, then we check for the infringement and we try to register them. Parallelly, what we do as a startup or as a company, what you can list out the various products and services which you are offering, or which the products which you have developed, and then categorize according to services and products, whether it be a subject matter of patent or trademark or confidential information you have to keep for those products and services, or it could be a subject matter of copyright. Then you can think about like whether it should be, we should go for the patent filing or we should go for the trademark, or it is worth protecting, products and services which we have identified. So let's discuss briefly all the components. If we are selecting a company name, domain name and trademark, so you can select a name that can be used as a trade name or a domain name. Trademark. Then identify the products or services. So what you can do, you can take the entire list of the product and services, break down the product and into products and services into its individual component, and these products and services could be software, factors, devices, depending on the nature of the startup or the company in which sector you are working. And services may vary from genome sequencing, gene knockouts and technology consulting, or you are developing a software and you are providing software to the customer. So these things can also be a part of the services. And then the next step would be the categorization of the company's product and services, which we call it as a IP inventory. So as soon as you are ready with the list of the product and services, and what we will do, now you can create an IP inventory, like how the items on the list can be further categorized under different forms of the IP. So the another important component within this process of the identification is assess different IP protection that might be eligible. So first you have to check whether the goods and services or the products and services can qualify for a patent or not. So to qualify for a patent, you have to check for the patentability criteria, which includes the novelty, inventive step and industrial application. And we all know that patent they are important as they play an important role in the entire technology life cycle, starting from the initial research, development and diffusion, and even you can think about licensing to the third parties to expand the financial gains. Now you can assess the potential, having the potential trademark, and then you can think about registering. You can start with the company name to register as a trademark, and domain name can be a part of it. Similarly, for identification, or you can assess about the potential copyright, where you can think about having a copyright in your products and services. And copyrighted material, this work is covered mostly in books, music, paintings, technical drawings, computer programs, software, databases. These could be a part of the copyright registration or copyright protection.
Dr. Vinita, may I request you to wrap up within a minute, if possible?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Similarly, for the confidential information, you can have a look on the entire list of the product and services. where you can see or you can assess what are the potential confidential information which can be kept as a trade secret, and you can go through the company document, the procedures, whether they have any commercial value, and also which has not already been disclosed to the public. So the another thing is you have to ensure about the novelty, whether whatever IP you have identified, whether it is patent, trademark, copyright, is actually it is novel or not. This can be checked with the help of the different IPR searches. It could be patent search or it could be the trademark or the copyright search. With now the last component in this is it worth protecting? So you can again review the list and identify which items do not need IP protection, and as soon as you are able to identify which are not qualifying the criteria of patent or the trademark or copyright, you can list them differently, and you can categorize them. These are the items which does not need IP protection, and these are the product and services which require the IP protection. So the important component which Mr. Jitesh also covered about why you want to file or why you want to have IP in place. So you have to think very carefully what are the reasons of investing in protecting the intellectual property rights. These reasons could be either to stop people from copying, or you want to add value to the company if you decide later on to sell it, or you want to license out to a third party. So Hemang, this is the last slide. I will I need only 1 minute. So what are the important strategies and considerations? While working at BIREC, we have realized that when we work with startups, they are mostly in dilemma whether to patent or not. So they are not able to understand whether we should go for the patent filing and when we should go for that. So this is where role of the IP team comes in picture at BIREC to advise them when to file and whether you should go for IP or not. So we also consider this consideration as an important part. You file early and keep quiet unless you think about filing a patent application, and you go for the complete patent application filing within the India. Don't disclose everything at the initial stage of the filing, because they might be generally what happens, they go to the venture capitalist, angel investors to get the funding. So they try to have more and more information on the patent aspects. So the third important component is file again as the invention evolves. So most of these startups, what they do, they as soon as they file one patent application, they think that we have already filed one application, we don't need to file again. But because innovation, you are doing regularly doing and continuously doing or innovating your product, you always come up with some additional information, additional innovation. Then you have to reevaluate your patent protection, and then you can consider on filing a patent application or IP on new features of the invention which has been developed during the process of innovation.
Dr. Vinita, sorry for interrupting, but we are out of time, and these are actually very impactful slides. In fact, in the chat box, we've been getting messages. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look while you were speaking, but people are finding this information really very helpful. So it's, but yeah. Sure.
Thank you, Hemang. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. I know we could have learned, and it's no wonder that BIREC is able to do such wonderful work, not just in terms of encouraging biotech innovations, but it also does a fair amount of tech transfer. If you notice, Dr. Vinita's slide had one point where, they were going to, looking at how you can commercialize the technology, how you can keep the invention alive, even though you're on your path to commercialization, right? And how you can file for more inventions along the way. So truly very helpful tips, and thank you so much, Dr. Vinita. The next speaker we have up is an industry address by Mr. Balwant Rawat. So may I request Balwant, can we hear from you, please?
Sure, Hemang. So hope you can hear me.
can hear and see you very clearly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will just try to keep my address short. I don't have a slides, but I would tell from my experience that I had with multiple companies as an IT professional. So what I have seen is that normally, and we saw a lot of good examples that Jatin also showed. So every startup or organization or a business, then it starts. So there is some sort of innovation, or many of them also have now IP protection rights. So the founders generally are quite innovative and they are able to create that value for their customers. So it's a fantastic example of all the innovation that they've pursued. So I'm going to touch about that as the organization grows. So what are the challenges it faces in sustaining that level of innovation and IP within the organization? So it's more of a internal perspective uh, that can only be possible if the organization is investing in the culture of innovation. So which is integrated as a part of the basic organization culture. So here the fact is that if we have this culture of innovation, then sustaining innovation is easy, and it's not no longer the few employees within the organization, but each and every employee has a chance to contribute to the organization's innovation goals and strategy. So that would mean that every employee in a company has some basic clarity on why, what, and how of innovation. So why, as in say, why innovate? Why should I go the extra mile beyond my daily job to contribute toward innovation? So what is in it for me? Then coming to so focusing on which opportunities should I invest, or should I give ideas, which should be, of course, aligned to the business strategy, or what are the right problems for the organizations to innovate. So do the employees know about that? And finally, the how. So I have the skill sets, but how can I contribute through ideas, or by giving feedback, or through development, or testing the ideas, or helping each other in the innovation journey? So the challenge becomes for the organizations to channelize the talent of the employees and the energy in the right direction so that the organization stays innovative. And from my experience, that this can happen that if the organization at the early end invest in the right people, process, and tools within the organizations. So generally, there is an important role that the service provider or external IP experts have a role to play once they have ideas in place. So I'm talking about the IP generation part on a sustainable basis. So let me expand a little bit on the people, process, and the tools system. So when I say people, the first and foremost is the leadership, the managers, the founders, to set that right expectation with the employees, to have a vision for innovation, and then in their day-to-day language, they are speaking about or emphasizing the role of innovation and IP. They are also practicing the right behavior, not just what the lip words, but also like encouraging the risk taking, embracing the failures, learning from them, and also most importantly, appreciating the efforts of the employees and the innovators so that the motivation stays. So another important category of people is the experts, the technical experts who can play an important role by not only contributing actively from innovation, but also providing feedback to the other employees. And this feedback should be a constructive feedback, which will help other employees to improvise on the ideas that are given by the people or by the employees. So that is how they can participate in identifying the problems or identifying opportunities by collaboration. And finally, the other set of important people, if you can have that role defined within the organization, is the people who could be the torch bearers for innovation, and if possible, an in-house IP team, so that they can act as a drivers and catalyst and coaches for innovation to put the processes and tools within the organization. And their role is important because they are binding the whole team. They are developing relationships and mentoring the innovators, which is very, very critical as they are working towards the business goals. So that is about the people element. Next, I will talk about the important processes that the organization should set up. One is, of course, identifying the opportunities and problem statements which the organization should invest so that those initial opportunities can grow into the ideas and inventions and IP and maybe innovations later on. So how do the employees get share of those feedback or opportunities or customer pain points? Or it could be even the trends that are coming from the outside the industry. So as a process, there should be some way for the organizations to collect the ideas and have a process to evaluate those ideas, provide feedback, a process to do a basic check of whether these ideas or innovations, do they have any IP risk from outside, which can be detected early through the right partners or right IP experts to do the clearance check. So there should be a process to build that basic awareness about and on a continuous basis doing that. And also once the efforts are yielding results, then there should be a process to celebrate and reward the innovations. So that's where rewards and recognitions of employees and also emphasizing innovation is a very, very important. And that's where employees will see innovators as heroes, and that will bring aspirations amongst the employees to really value the innovators, the innovation culture, and contribute towards the success of the organizations. And just ideas are not sufficient. IP, it's not. There should be a process towards experimentation, POCs, collaboration, and governance of KPIs like that. So the tools that help in doing that is a portal that can help you in collecting the ideas, prior art search, and a platform for enabling the discussion amongst the subject matter experts and sharing of the information, the culture. So in summary, so if that's the one goal that the organization, the founders can keep is how are they engaging their employees in the culture and also in the journey of innovation that is beneficial as a win-win situation, both the employees and the organization. So I would leave it. That's my last takeaway.
Thanks so much, Balwant. I know IP, there's a culture aspect of IP which applies to every organization. And it's ultra critical, especially at the startup stage. When there are 2%, 3% company, the founder's vision, everything will drive it forward. But as you rightly said, it has to be nurtured in various ways, through recognition, through rewards, through fun competitions and contests, so that that torch is passed from, the founders to the next generation of leaders. Thanks so much, Balwant. And it's no wonder that your firm is doing so well with very capable IP leaders like yourself. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts. And now let's hear from Professor Anurag Agarwal. And Dr. Agarwal, over to you. Let's hear your thoughts on best practices for innovators. We can't hear you.
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I visible?
Yes.
Okay, I will, just 1 second. So is the PPT also visible?
Yes.
Very good, very good. So thank you very much, ASSOCHAM. Thank you to co-panelists for a wonderful discussion on IP and what the startups can do about it. Now, I've just put down a couple of thoughts on this slides. So please feel free for any questions if you have in the, maybe to the organizers, and we can answer them. And I'm also available by email. So all the members who are there joining us in this webinar, my email is right there in front of you. You may send me an email later and I can take all those questions. Now, I have been teaching IPR now for almost 25 years. And 10 years ago, I wrote a book, Business and Intellectual Property, published by Random House, under the I Am Ahmedabad series. Now, it has been written basically for business managers, for people who do not have a law background and all. So it would be, if you are interested, you can go through that. But let us try to understand a couple of things. When we talk about startups, the thought comes, as most of my students here at IIM Ahmedabad, some of them are interested in startups and doing things on their own. So it's all about ideas and passion. So the people who want to go for startups, one important thing is passion, and then mostly technology, using technology and working with technology, and then finding solutions to existing problems, or maybe identifying the relevant problems and then trying to find solutions. Sometimes it also happens that you come up with certain product or service, very innovative. There is no demand for it in the market right now, but then you try to create a demand for that. And there is a whole list of all those things, products and services, by big companies and by even very, very small startups. But what happens is, if you're a startup, you can't always remain a startup. You have to grow, you have to become profitable, you have to sustain yourself in the long run. Now, you need to make profit in the long run. And that's very, very important. For making profit, your ideas, your passion, everything should convert, should translate into business, commercialization, profit making. But the issue is that how do you do this? And there, a very old Latin maxim is, which says ignorantia facti excusat, ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorantia, ignorance. Facti, facts. Excusat, can be excused. So it says ignorance of facts can be excused, but ignorance of juris, that is law, cannot be excused. We all understand that, and that's why it's said in plain simple English that ignorance of law is no excuse. There is no excuse for ignorance of law. Had that been, the wonderful thing would be people don't file income tax return or don't even pay income tax, and someone asks them, they say, I never knew that there is something called income tax. A person kills someone and then he says, I never knew that this is something called murder and we can't kill anyone. Or you are going on the streets in Singapore and you start spitting here and there, like Indian habits and all. And then someone catches you and no, you say this is my birthright and I've been doing in India. No, sir, you can't do that in Singapore because the law is different there. And ignorance of law, when we say, is no excuse. So it becomes important that where are you doing business? In what legal environment? And that will make all the sort of difference for people to understand IP and how the startups are going to make use of that IP. So it is essential to know the IP law, and particularly in the jurisdiction in which you want to do business. When your startup becomes big, as of course, all startups have a dream, an aim, a goal, a purpose to become big and big in the times to come, and you go from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction and you start becoming a multinational, transnational company, then of course you need to understand the IP law not only in your country, in your jurisdiction, but in other jurisdictions also. For example, huge big companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, and so on and so forth, you have to know what the law is everywhere in different parts of the world. Like big pharmaceutical companies may get an IP protection, a patent protection in the country in which they are doing business, but maybe, for example, just for example, not in India or not in the country X or Y or Z. So it is essential to know the IPR, at least the basics. What are the different types of IPR? What are the relevant statutes, the different acts and different laws which govern them. But then there is a problem, and typically this problem is with people in startups. And there is a right balance to be achieved. And this is the triangle which I emphasize with my students. And this you can make just like a triangle, and the three corners of this triangle. One is your passion. The passion is for whatever you are doing, whether technology or you are trying to find a solution for something, and you are really passionate about it. You don't want to be disturbed. You don't want to be told that these are your working hours and this is your workplace and this is your workstation. You need to do work like this. No. Mind doesn't work that way for startups and people who are really, really overwhelmed with all those thoughts of finding some solution, finding the right thing to do, or this is my idea, how to take it to the market. So they may work anytime, they may work on any day, or they may not work for a couple of days or weeks or months. They may say, no, I don't feel like, my mind is sort of clogged right now and I may work later. That's all fine. Excuse me. But passion itself, overwhelming of ideas and all that, it's not going to take you anywhere until and unless the second apex of this triangle, the corner, that is business. You try to find some business sense into it, commercialize it, take it to the market, make it successful. Only then you can make profit and remain successful there. And the third is the law. You have to follow the law. You have to remain on the right side of the law. You cannot violate the law. And the problem is that law can be very, very different in different parts of the world, in different jurisdictions. So you need to understand in what legal environment you are doing business. So do I need to know the IPR law? The answer is yes, you need to. How much? At least the basics. And then if you have interest, go further down into it, but at least the basics. Now the next question arises, how to align legal and business strategy. So startups and any business, in fact, or even individuals like you and I, typically we are talking startups and businesses, they must make profit by being on the right side of the law. You have to be on the right side. And your business strategy depends the long term, whatever strategy you are going to formulate, and it depends on the legal environment for doing business. And the legal environment is an essential part of the business environment in which you do business. So whether it is in a country like India, United States, France, Japan, Germany, European Union, United Kingdom, or let's say Saudi Arabia or Sultan of Brunei, or let's say North Korea or South Africa, you need to understand, where am I doing business? Or we forgot China and Russia and other places. So you need to be very, very clear about it, that this is the law and this is the legal periphery which allows me to do business, and I have to be within this legal periphery. So let's say this is straight line, there is a straight line which divides people on the right side of the law and the wrong side of the law. Now what you do is just curve the line and keep on making it, turning it so that it becomes a circle. And this circle is right in front of you, which is the legal periphery. So the closer you are to the center, let's just as an assumption, you are more law abiding. And if you are A, you are quite law abiding and you try to remain as close to the center, but B is also inside the circle and quite complying with the law. But C, you can right now C is outside. And that is what is the interesting aspect. Remember, most of the intellectual property rights, whether patents, I'm not talking about right now trademark, which can be like statutory also, and you can have a right also according to common law, but patents, let's say. So patents, you cannot have on your own. You need to apply to an office, patent office, by different names in different countries. And once the office is satisfied that you have met all the conditions, only then a patent will be granted. Now let us say these B and C are competitors, and C applied for a patent and C was rejected by the patent office, that you cannot get the patent. Now what can C do? Now it depends on the legal environment in which you are doing the business. So let's say it is United States. So C goes to the court and challenges that order and says, look, the patent office has wrongly decided that I cannot get the patent. And it gets the patent, assuming the court allows that. So that is one. And this is happening for ages, at least for 150 years or so in the United States, and at times in India also, but not too much in India, but let's say United States. And this happens, whether it was Thomas Alva Edison or others, Henry Ford, or in recent times, number of Amazon and Google, and they keep on, or Apple and let's say Samsung. It was about the design patent, what they call at the design, industrial design. So this is the legal periphery, what C will try to do. Now see the beauty in the next slide. What has happened? The legal periphery, interestingly, remember, it is dynamic in nature. It is not static. It doesn't remain the same, or not necessarily it remains the same. It can change. So with a judgment from the courts, and there is a structure of courts right at the top, the Supreme Court US in different countries. The court said, C, you can get the patent. Now, if B is the competitor of C, what B can do? And that is the beauty of legal strategy aligning with business strategy. C goes and challenges B's patent and says the patent which was granted to B was wrongly granted. And when the court decides, yes, we agree with you. So what happens? The patent of B is gone and B is no more within the legal periphery. So that is the beauty of the legal environment, what you can do with the help of intellectual property, attorneys and lawyers who can take the case forward. But for that, you need to have a proper legal environment. Now, where does all the intellectual property, or where do all the intellectual property rights fit in? So you need to own them, then commercialize and protect them. Confidentiality is extremely important. You need to identify the right type, whether patent, copyright, trademark, design, geographical indication, confidential information, trade. But then document the things. Whatever you do in your company, firm, by whatever name you call your startup, partnership, but try to document, whether hard copy or electronic, because you may need it as an evidence later on. So the three important takeaways which I am talking about are, number one, know the IPR, at least at the basic level. Then try to understand how it is taking, giving shape to business in your jurisdiction. And then protect your IP and try not to infringe the IP of others. These are the three takeaways which I would like all the people who are in the startups to just remember and follow them. I'm open to questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agarwal. This was truly, I mean, very simplistically put, you outlined the right strategy folks should apply. Now, I know we are out of time. Nahid, Yashpal, do we have any time for questions?
Yes, we can extend for 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, so let me, in the chat box, I was paying attention to some of the questions which have come in, and I'll open it to I guess, whoever wants to address it. But maybe the first one is what can we as law students do to increase awareness about IPR among potential innovators?
Maybe I will take it.
Sure.
Now, I have been a law teacher to law students and then now business school students, and keep on visiting law universities for, as I said, 25 years or even more. So law students, number one, you need to be understanding what the law is clearly. Now, when you want to convey or communicate the same thing to the innovators, now innovators are typically of two categories, just so many, but let me put it at two categories. Number one, you can say by whatever name you call it, but sophisticated, intelligent, or let's say educated and all that. So they understand what you are talking about. But then there is a large number of innovators. Excuse me, India is a land of villages, farmers, and so on and so forth. If you try to start speaking your legalese and in your language, no, you cannot communicate to them, because they know how to innovate, but they don't know the sophistication and the language you're talking about. So you need to be extremely careful in what forum and to what persons you are speaking. Only then connect with them properly. So if you are speaking to a farmer somewhere in an agricultural farm and he has come up with a fantastic innovation, whether it can be for a plow or any new equipment. So you need to try to understand how to communicate the things to them, and then put it in the right framework and try to educate them. But before that, you need to put yourself in whether this format you need to go or this format. You cannot mix them. That is very, very important. You should be clear about it.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. Let me read out the next question from Mr. Rabindra Kumar Das to everyone. So I'll paraphrase this question. It's about the fear of an innovator to maintain the confidentiality about their innovation. And a part of Dr. Agarwal's answer, what he just mentioned, covered that. But possibly a question that maybe Mr. Jatin or others can expand on is in the lines of the filing aspects as such. Is there a concern that they need to be worried about, that they file for a patent, and should they be worried about confidentiality from that point onwards? Let me give my take on that. So, see, the thing is, once you file a patent, right, it will not be published for 18 months, and that is by design. Patents remain hidden from public view until that time, and it's one wonderful thing that especially innovators need to do. So I come across startups and all that before they're going to any external presentation, such as they might be pitching at a competition, or they might be having a product demo. So at that point of time, before that public disclosure, it is always a good practice to at least file a provisional patent application, if patent is the right category, right? If not for a full filing, a provisional patent. Because what that does is it protects your innovation before you disclose it to the public. And should you get any questions with regards to how it exactly works and all that, I believe you are well in the freedom to say that if my work is patent pending, I can only give you certain details from now, and most people will understand why you're saying that. Okay. So there is probably we can take the last question, and maybe Balwant or someone else can answer. This person has an idea for building an Android mobile application. Now they don't know how to build this thing, so they are going to hire or work with freelancers. So how can they protect their idea from essentially being stolen or infringed?
So yeah, that's a very valid question and comes across a lot of time, because as a part of innovation, you need to get help from the suppliers or third-party people. So there, during the entering the agreement itself, one needs to clear about how the further development is going to be protected, and based on the innovative contribution that either party is giving, so you can also give credit. So it could be a joint development also, so that it would joint owners also, or if it is a work for hire which happens there, then you can actually make it clarify that whatever the intellectual property is coming, it belongs to the person who is funding the project. So in that case, it's very, very important to make it clear in the beginning itself, so that there are no disputes later on.
Great. Thank you so much, Balwant. One last question we can address it just came in is, can we file a patent for a design of a product? So it's not I believe the technical work that they're after, but they're after designs. I know a number of us can answer it, but is there anyone who would like to go for it first? Balwant, do you mind addressing that?
Sure. So the design part of it, there are different countries, they deal it differently. So for example, the US and the China, they treat it as a separate category within a patent system itself. So you can file a design patent in those jurisdictions. In India, there is a different category called design rights. So that's where you can also apply. If not, then also copyright is also a loose form of protection that they can do it definitely. But yes, it is possible to protect the designs under the utility designs that are offered by many countries. So depending upon where your invention is going to be commercialized, you can see what are the mechanisms in that country to protect it.
Thank you, Balwant, and really you covered all the bases over there. And this is something that we come across in our startups who are creating products. So let's say they might be creating a drone or any IoT device before they go towards production. Because when they start, the prototypes look like pretty much like college projects, right? Where things are working, the idea is demonstrated essentially. But before they actually launch the market in a product, they have to really optimize the design so that their end users can work more comfortably with the device. It looks more visually appealing to them. So industrial design rights do play a very important part. It can be an overlooked part also because that's not on the primary radar for a number of these folks. So thanks so much. And I think we are well past our time. I firstly thank all the experts that joined today and shared insights. Really valuable inputs, and was great to see the validation, from, I guess, our customers today, right, which were the attendees. Then, of course, we thank all the participants today. Thanks for really being attentive today. These days we have a lot of webinars ongoing, so your time, your presence here shows how much you really value this material, and I hope you have a lot of, I guess, take home or homework to do after you're done attending this session. Thanks so much, ASSOCHAM, for organizing this, and I wish you all a very pleasant day. See you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me for this.